Greetings everyone. I am Surinder Kaur Satwant Singh from the Language Centre of the National Defence University of Malaysia, along with my research partner Marzia Samsudin. And today we bring to you a rather special topic, which is an extra pair of eyes and ears goes a long way. Our study is a preliminary study investigating higher learning institution readiness towards inclusivity. First of all, let us look at the study overview and our methodology. For our research design, we have adopted the qualitative phenomenological approach, which focuses on lived experiences of the instructors. We also intend to explore the institutional readiness for inclusive education. For our study, especially in terms of the sampling and method, we used 10 English language instructors' experiences and we selected them from various Malaysian public universities. We also administered semi-structured focus group interviews, which lasted for 90 minutes each interview, and then we implemented the thematic analysis using the Brown and Clark's approach. Here are 5 key findings that we developed or we obtained from our research. Firstly, we looked at institutional policies. Inconsistent interpretation of inclusion across departments. This is the first thing that we noticed because some of the instructors, they indicated that some faculties lack structured guidelines for students with sensory impairments. And since our study focuses on sensory disabilities, which means that students who have got vision impairment as well as hearing impairments. The second thing that we looked at is pedagogical practices. For this, instructors express uncertainty in adapting materials, and few received formal training in inclusive pedagogy, though assessment's flexibility was noted as a strength. The third one was student experiences. Students with sensory disabilities reported varied experiences. Structured feedback mechanisms are needed to capture lived experiences and perceptions of inclusions. These experiences were taken as a reflection from the point of view of the instructors, and hence more research might be required. Accessibility barriers was also one of the issues that were raised, as many institutions lacked accessible digital learning materials and physical spaces that had limited sensory accessibility despite mobility compliance. And last but not the least, support services. Institutional support services are often centralized without any specialization, and sign language interpreters and assistive technologies were often absent. So based on our findings and the thematic analysis, we drove to 5 readiness framework branches, or we call it the Inclusive Education Readiness Framework. The first is the institutional policies itself, where policy coherence, leadership commitment, and resource allocation is extremely important. The second is to also have proper pedagogical practices, whereby professional development and instructional flexibility is highly needed or is extremely crucial in assisting pedagogical readiness for inclusivity. The third is accessibility. So for accessibility, physical and digital inclusivity of learning spaces must be increased, and this must be an area that should not be overlooked. Fourth, support services. The availability of specialized support and assistive technologies must go hand in hand with materials adaptation. And last but not the least, lived experiences and perceptions of inclusion and feedback from students is extremely crucial. As our final slide, we would like to suggest that in order for us to implement inclusive education, it is important for us to move forward together in terms of these four key areas. The first area that needs to be looked into is institutionalization of inclusion policies, which is extremely crucial. Universities should integrate inclusion goals into strategic plans and performance indicators. Second, capacity building, continuous professional development focusing on sensory disabilities and inclusive pedagogy is highly recommended. Third, to look into infrastructure and resource development. Investments in assistive technology and accessible digital content are critical for students who are adapted into the higher institutions. And last but not the least, to have systematic feedback mechanisms, as structured feedback channels should be established mainly for students with disabilities. As a conclusion, inclusion must be viewed not as an act of accommodation, but as a transformative process of reimagining educational equity. Educational equity through collaborative efforts and systematic implementation of these recommendations, higher learning institutions can create truly inclusive environments for all learners. That is all from us. Thank you.